Okay. Nigel Martinez, Director of the Belize Federation of Fishers.
So, Mr. Martinez, you attended, I think, one of the consultations that the Coastal Zone Management Fisheries had with fishers and other stakeholders when it comes to the expansions of the protection zone.
Correct.
How would you describe firstly that interaction there?
Um, Immediate impression would be poorly organized. And there are several reasons why I came to that conclusion. And when I say poorly organized, I'm talking from the standpoint of the consultants and of the organizers. Um, and it appears to me that um, they were lacking in communication between the fisher folks. At that specific meeting, the one that I attended in Belize City, had only 4 fishers attended. What I would have wanted to see was when you look at Lighthouse and Glovers in particular, because Bacalar Chico is way out of the central comfort zone. But when you look at those specific 2 zones, what I would have wanted to see based on numbers would have been the amount of fishers that fish in those 2 respective zones and the amount of stakeholders that access those specific area. And then I would have wanted to see a percentage of that number. Because when you talk about public consultation, and that word consultation has been misused and abused. When you talk about public consultation, there was no public consultation there. They did not even meet a threshold. So that was alarming to me. And that's why I came to that conclusion that it was poorly organized.
The areas that were identified, I think it was 3 areas were identified for the expansion of APZs. Is this a good thing in the BFS view?
Well, that depends on who the target audience are. Because as I have indicated to them, you cannot come to a consultation and do not provide the necessary information in order for people to understand the purpose of this medium biodiversity expansion. And I had asked them specifically, what does medium biodiversity expansion mean? And they came back with the answer that the area will remain the same. Now, I have a problem with that because when you talk about the area remain the same, what does that mean? I have different interpretation to what my fellow colleagues might have. What I would have wanted to see, and I had requested, I would have wanted to see a management layout of the new expansion area. Each zone should have a management plan. What are the new requirements for these expansion? How will these impact the area? What is the fisheries management of that specific area? None of those were explained. So when you ask for the buy-in of the fishers to support this initiative, they won't, they can't, because they do not understand. None of the fishers that attended the Belize City consultation fish in any of those zones. None of them. So their target audience for Belize City specifically was not met. Right? And then adding to that, the fact that they could not present any kind of management plan, how the area would be sustained, how it would be enforced. Now we understand that it is deep water, but deep water for whom? Who are they expanding it for? You understand? So those were some of our immediate challenges and questions to them.
When we interviewed the acting fisheries administrator Quintana after that the city consultation, he had said that the other consultation they had countrywide, they were successful, right? And that the fishermen, they supported the idea. Now, from the fisher folks that you've been speaking, what are they saying?
Well, successful for whom? How do you define success? Because my question to the acting fisheries administrator, what I would have wanted to see based on zones, zone one, zone one, zone 8, and zone, it's Lighthouse, Glovers, and Bacalar Chico, right? So based on those 3 zones, I would have wanted to see a percentage of the fishers that fish in those zones. And based on that number, then we could have determined what the level of participation should have been. And from there, you could have get a clear feedback because these are the rightful users. These are the beneficiaries. These are the people that you are targeting that are using the area. As I understand it, and let me just refer to my notes. As I understand it, of the 300 people that participate in the countrywide workshop, 24% of them were fishers. 24%. So how that 24% impact the users within the 3 respective zones? That has not been established. Another issue that we had was that fishers did not want to sign the attendance sheet, and there's a specific reason for that. You know, there's no trust. There's no trust between the fishers and the ministry, and by extension the department. That has been lost. Another issue is their approach. Their approach to the fishers and the stakeholders is a top-down approach. And we have said categorically that type of approach will not work. Now, if they had approached from a bottom-up approach, which would have been consult the federation, the cooperative, and the respective stakeholders who have interest in those specific areas by way of email correspondence, so that we can have sufficient time to get our members to formulate our opinion, to come up with advice and suggestions. Those were not done. But instead, they came and they made a presentation, and because the government have to meet milestone 4 based on the Blue Bond commitment, they outright don't care whether you agree or don't agree. At the end of the day, the SI is going to be implemented.
Yeah, I was going to that because I think some fishers believe that they were truly being consulted to sort of like approve this, right? But that's not the case because regardless of how the fisher feel about this, they have to meet that deadline for Blue Bond.
Exactly. And one of my major concern with meeting the deadline for the Blue Bond and ensuring that these milestones are met is the fact that we recently came out of a National Fisheries Enforcement Workshop. And in that workshop, we were told that there's several updates that need to take place to the fisheries policy and legal framework. And that entail 1, the revision to the fisheries policy strategy and action plan, which expired this year. 2, the need to revise the fisheries regulation and bring it in alignment with the Fisheries Resource Act of 2020. These are things that need to be in place in order for you to get a good sense of how the management of these expansions are going to take place. So, in my view, and in the view of the Federation, these should be priority before these milestones are met.
For fishers now, because I think they had a big one, the final one at Biltmore, I think it was. Right?
Yes.
So what happens now? Is it that they say it was successful, they say that they got the fisher folks' suggestions, opinions, and concerns, and they wrap up their report and that's it?
Well, in their conclusion, that is the final straw. They're going to do their necessary report. They're going to draft the necessary legislation. This milestone needs to be met by next month. And in their view, that is going to proceed because they felt that they have consulted with the mass majority of the areas that are being expanded. And in my view, there is no justification to show that they have consulted. The reality is the areas are deep areas. And many of the fishers do not have the necessary resource to go into those specific areas. So our question, who are these expansions really going to benefit? It's just going to benefit the commitment to the Blue Bond, or there is something behind the scene that is going to come next? And the reason why we have been asking these questions is because we know the challenges right now to enforce, to protect these current zones. And now you're expanding without even providing any necessary tools that would show how these expansions are going to be managed, how it's going to play into the fisheries management on a whole. We're not seeing that. So at the end of the day, the fishers that attended the validation process have no other choice but to say, well, it's not going to affect me, it's not going to affect me, so why not just go ahead? We have to meet the milestone for anyhow.
Yeah, so final question for that one. Are they rushing to meet this milestone?
Well, of course they're rushing. They have a deadline. Look at when fishers decide to do the countrywide consultation. Just recently, just last 2 months, they decided to do the consultation, and it was scheduled back to back to back. Many of these fishers, my colleague will tell you, he was out at sea. He could not even participate. When he came in, it's because the consultation was completed.